Okay, today I'm going to show you a manual jib crane that I built. I came up with this rig yesterday, and the main reason for building it is to be able to get large logs up into my pickup truck when I'm on site cutting up a tree. A lot of times I'll cut up a tree and the rounds are so big I can't lift them by myself, and usually I don't have any help. I'm by myself on site, and I need a way to get those logs or those big rounds up on the bed of my pickup truck. And I've thought of maybe building, a ramp and trying to, roll them up there. I thought of a couple different ways, but I came up with this yesterday and it works great. And the only other option when you have those big rounds on site is to split them right there. And now that I have a log splitter, it's just easier to load them up and drop them on site and split them here. And sometimes the wood doesn't want to cooperate and there's a lot of knots in it, and it takes a lot to get through it with a maul. And I've done that for years, and some of the wood just doesn't want to cooperate, so you spend a lot of time trying to split that on site. Now that I have a log splitter, it's easier just to bring it back and split it here. So here's the rig. It's very simple. A lot of guys probably have a lot of this material laying around their shop. It's just, it consists of 3 2x4s, a piece of plywood, a seat swivel on the bottom, some chain. You do need a log tongs, and some clevises, and some pins here. But you could use bolts in place of some of this stuff that I have here. So right now I have an 80-pound log that's hooked up to this thing, and I experimented with this a little bit, and I think I've got it down to where I like it. You need a long enough lever arm here, so when you pull down on this side of it and you swivel it over, you can go ahead and set it on the bed of your pickup truck. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how it works real quick, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more. One thing I wanted to say was, this log is 80 pounds. The clevis and the chain and the log tongs is another 20 pounds. So I have 100 pounds on the end of this. And what I did was I took a scale because I wanted to see how much force or power I needed straight down to pull that up off the ground. So what I did was I got a bathroom scale, and I'm 220 pounds, and I stood on here. Wait till it zeroes out here. Okay, 220, so I'm going to pull down on this and then look at how much this reduces. That's 30 pounds. So I need 30 pounds of downforce to lift that 100 pounds on that side up. So that's not bad. That's a reduction of 70%. So, and the thing is, with 30 pounds of downforce, it's a lot easier to pull down, I think, than to bend over and pick up this log. This log is 80 pounds, and this rig, I'm gonna show you. It'll lift. I already lifted 160 pounds with it, and I know it could probably do a little bit more. But that's what this is for. This isn't for lifting huge, like over 200 pounds or 300 pound rounds. This is for anything up to about 150, 175 pounds. Those logs that you want to try to load yourself, but you know that you probably shouldn't. So that's what this thing is for. And the cool thing is, you can take this all apart. It's very light. You just throw it in the back of your pickup. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set it up on this workbench. This workbench is the same height as my pickup truck. Actually, I think it's a ½ inch higher than my pickup. So this is what I used to experiment with. So let me get the scale out of the way here, and I'm going to show you how I put this up here. You just pull down on this, and I'm kind of limited on space in here because of the rafters and stuff. So you just swing it right over, and just set it on the tailgate. Now you probably noticed this column wobbling there a little bit. That's okay. This base, it's a plywood base, and it's not really intended to keep this thing, this log from going over one side or the other. The reason that this rig works is because when I push down on this end of it, and I lift that log up, right now this whole rig, it's got to be balanced. So all the weight is straight down, all the force is straight down on that column. And that's why this column doesn't go toppling over. Now if I get this log swinging a little bit, it'll start moving a little bit. And the other thing, the really important thing is that this column needs to be plumb. It needs to be straight up and down. And So if you're on site, you're probably on uneven ground a lot. So I'm just going to take some 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 plywood for shims. And when I get on site and set this up behind my pickup truck, I'm just going to shim this, because this does have to be straight plumb in order for this rig to really work good. If it wasn't, and you want to lift this up, this thing would just fall right over. So when I do put a load on it and I lift it, this thing is wobbling a little bit, but it's fine. It's totally controllable, and it's way easier than trying to lift this log up by myself and taxing your back and everything else. So I'm going to put it back down on the ground. And your other options when you're on site like this is to use like a cherry picker, but trying to haul that around in your back of the truck, those things are so heavy, and then getting it down on the ground and loading it, and then when you're pumping that hydraulic jack, it takes a long time. I've done that in the past, and you got to have one to begin with, or you got to have one on site. So that's why this thing is so nice. You just take it all apart, throw it in the back of your truck, and you're able to lift these. I cut the logs anywhere from 18 to 24 inches usually for my wood burner. So I think I can handle, this thing will handle a lot of those. If they're real big, I'll be forced to score them with a chainsaw and split them with wedges and a maul and a sledgehammer. And then I could use this to pick them up. So this is good for, I wouldn't want to go anything more than about 175 pounds. So what I'm going to do is, I'm gonna take this apart. I'm gonna put it on the bench. There's only 4 main parts to it, really, minus the clevises and the chains and stuff. I'm gonna take it apart, lay it on the bench, show you how I built it, and then put it back together right on camera. And then there's a third segment to this video that I already filmed, and I filmed it because the sun was setting, and I wanted to set this up behind my pickup truck. And I had 3 logs that I loaded on the bed of my pickup truck, and I did have to shim this base. And the 3rd log, I went out there after I did that film segment, and I put it on that bathroom scale, and that log was 160 pounds. So with the 20 pounds of rigging here, that's 180 pounds that this thing lifted, and it was a big log, you'll see. So I'm going to stop the camera right now, take this whole thing apart, set it on the bench, and then put it back together and explain how I built it. All right? Okay, here it is, all disassembled, laying on the bench. And as you can see, it easily comes apart, and it's light. You can just throw it in the back of your truck. And you could even keep this base on if you wanted to, but if you wanted to take that off, it's just 4 screws. Fits right in the back, throw it in the back of the truck, and then you could set it up right behind your pickup to put the logs in it. So I'll go through this and give you some dimensions and show you how I built it. Really simple. The materials list is 3 2x4s by 8 foot, and then a little bit of 3/4 inch plywood. This is 30 inches in diameter, and then a little 6 3/4 by 6 3/4 piece here, and then this boat swivel. This boat swivel was $15. It's a seat swivel for a boat, and it's real tight. And it has, looks like some kind of a nylon bearings in there that are greased. So, and if you think about these swivels, they go on those boat seats like on bass boats and aluminum boats and that have the pedestal. If you ever sit on one of those, this could probably, I looked on the computer and they didn't have any ratings for it, like the weight rating or what the specs were, how much weight it could handle. I actually looked this one up and a couple others, and they didn't have any specs on it, but you got to figure it's rated for at least a 200-pound guy. And when you ever sit in those boat seats, you're always leaning back, so it's going to take a lot of force, lateral forces from one side to the other. So I think it's more than strong enough for what I'm using it for. Best case scenario, I mean, all the force is straight down on this column, so there shouldn't be that much unless it's not on even ground. So that's the whole key to making this work, is making sure that when you get on site that you just put some shims under there here and get this so it's so that's level and the pole is straight up and down. Other than that, I think the little bit that this pole wobbles from side to side is fine. You could feel if it's starting to go over. So like I said, the whole key is just to get this thing level. So here's the column, and all that is 2 2x4s, and I'll give you a length here. They started out as 8 foot, and I cut them down to looks like 79.5, so just a little over 6.5 foot. 79.5 inches, and I just took the cut off from these two, and I put some 3.5 inch spacers in here. And what I did was I turned this one so I wasn't screwing in the end grain, and I have 5 screws holding this 3/4 inch piece of plywood to the base, and everything is glued. I use wood glue and deck screws, and these are glued, and there's deck screws going into there. So that's the column, and I have the pins that I have. These are like tractor pins. They're 3/4 inch diameter, and I drilled the main hole here. Looks like 2.5. The center is 2.5 inches from the very top, and that's a 3/4 inch hole all the way through. And I sanded it out a little bit with a Dremel just so this pin wasn't, so it would go slide in and out real nice. So then we'll talk about the, I guess the jib or the lever arm. And I think you should watch where you drill these holes. Like this is the main hole that I use. This one here, it takes a little bit more force. Actually, it takes another 10 pounds. And this is a distance of about 4 inches. So that 4 inches, there's a difference of, I need to pull with 10 pounds more force to get that log up. So I decided on using this, and I still had enough room from here to the end here to get the log onto the tailgate or the workbench. But when you drill these holes, I favored the bottom side. I figured anything in the middle or on the top, I mean, that would definitely bust out. So you want to get as much meat or as much wood over that hole, so this would be effective and lift what you want to without this 2x4 cracking. And same thing with this here. This is where this main clevis goes, and I favored the top side because all the force is going to be straight down on it. Same with this hole back here. This is where the pull rope goes, and you want as much material here. So you got to watch what side you drill the holes on. Last thing is the base, and that's just 30 inches in diameter, 29.5 actually, and then I just use 4 number 10 by 3/4 inch, no, number 12 panhead screws. And usually I like to through bolt this kind of stuff, but I think this is going to be just fine. I don't think there's going to be that much pull. If I do have a problem with it and find out these are pulling out, which I don't think they're gonna, I'll end up, it's always a good idea to through bolt stuff like that. But in order to through bolt it, really to do it right, you need to countersink the backside to set the nut so it's under the surface here, but that's possible. So you could either screw it or through bolt it. And then the rest is the rigging, and that's the log tongs, a chain, some clevises. Now this clevis with the pull handle on it, this thing is huge. And the whole reason that I use this is just to get some more weight back here. That's all it is. It helps ease the pull on these logs. So it doesn't have to be anything like this, but I was trying to figure out a way to get as much weight on this backside and the least amount up here to make it easier to pull down. There comes a point where if you put too much weight back here, when you release the log up on the tailgate of the pickup and you pull this back down, it becomes hard to pull this down because you've got all that weight on there. So there's a happy medium in there. And then this thing here, this is just an 1/8 inch cable with a clip here that holds the chain in place that holds the log tongs in place while I'm hooking up to another log, so the lever arm doesn't go shooting back. So I'm gonna put this together real quick, show you how I do that. First thing, I'm going to set this aside. I'll try to move slow so I don't get too much shaking with the camera. I'm going to set this down. So the seat swivel costs $15, and the 2x4s, 3 2x4s cost $7.50, and then I had all these other clevises and stuff, so you could build this thing for, and the plywood costs some money, but a lot of people probably have a lot of this stuff laying around, so it's a fairly inexpensive way to be able to lift these logs. I think it's kind of cool to be able to use your own power to lift the log up, and it's fast. I mean, if you think about those cherry pickers, they're heavy and they're slow because you've got to, of course they'll lift a lot more than these, but this is all I'm looking for, is to be able to lift 150-pound logs up on my truck, maybe a little bit more. I gotta loosen that up a little. So what I did was I just centered this. I just centered this seat swivel. Got some marks there on this piece of plywood. I thought about trying to figure out tripod legs, and I'm sure there's people out there who can come up with a lot better base than this. I would like it to be a little bit more sturdy, but for the time and money that it took, I mean, I built this thing just in a couple of hours, and I did decide to put some sealer on it. I just like the way that it looks, and I'm going to probably have this thing around for a while, so I put a couple of coats of sealer on it last night before I left the shop. So there's the base is on, and I'll go ahead and set it down. Now, you can keep the base on when you load it in your truck. It doesn't have to come off. And when you've got a truck bed full of logs and stuff, you can just throw this on and it should stay on, no problem. I'm going to put this back in my spot here. So I'll put the lever arm on. I've got this tractor pin here. I'm going to use this front hole. I don't know if the camera's picking up, but I'm going to take a shot of this whole rig when I'm done here, just to show what it looks like. So this is what you'd be doing on site once you got there. You just set it up. And then I put this clevis. Now you don't even need to use this. If you wanted to reduce the weight a little bit up here, you could probably use a thick rope and tie it. But I had this clevis, so I'm just going to use this. This, and then I'll put the back one on. And I made this rope with a T-handle. I had an old paint stick and I just drilled a hole through it. So this clevis, these two clevises weigh 8 pounds. I weighed them. So that helps out quite a bit. I mean, when you get heavier logs, the more weight the better down there. But like I said, there is a point where if you have too much, then you're fighting this on this end. Okay. I'm just gonna hook this up. That's what holds that. Now it's a little tippy until you get, it will hold, but until you get these log tongues on. And I know it's the 10th link. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what I want. So there it is right there. And I'm going to hook this log up. What you want to do is you want to put this, you want those log tongs to go down as far as you can, and this lever arm to go up as far as you can, so that when you pull this lever arm down, you'll get your maximum distance here, or height, so you can get it up on the tailgate. So I'm going to take this off, and I'll take this camera and take the whole shot of this. I don't know how much you saw there. It was on, I had the camera on my headgear there. So this is the rig. There's the T-handle that you pull down. So I'll just stand here and pull down on this and show you. Now I told you that it takes 30 pounds of down force on that, on the pull handle to be able to lift that log off. The log's 80 pounds, all this rigging is another 20. So if you do the math on it, it works out just right. Oh, I should talk about the distance from the very end to the pin there, or the pivot point, or it's also called the fulcrum. So that distance is 26.5 inches. And then the distance from here to that pull handle, or the clevis up there, it's 66 inches. So the formula for torque is torque equals force times lever arm, or weight times lever arm. So and torque is in, the units are foot-pounds. So if you just do the math on this, the 26.5 inches from the center to here, that is, let me see here, that's 2.21 feet, okay? Now I have 100 pounds on this side here. So if you multiply that times the 2.21, that's 221 foot-pounds on this side. On that side there, in order to pull that down, you take the 221 and divide it by 66 inches, which is 5.5 feet. So that comes out to about 40 pounds that you're pulling down. But it only took me about 30 to pull it down, because, and that makes sense, because the clevises I have up there were 8 pounds. So that extra 2 pounds is probably, I didn't take into account this 2x4. So there's weight or mass in that 2x4, and it's longer on that side. So it comes out just about right. It comes out to about 30 pounds of pull that I need on this side in order to lift that 100-pound weight on this side here. So it's just the torque formula. Torque equals. Okay, my memory card ran out on me, but I was just talking about how the math works on this. So it takes 30 pounds of down force on this lever arm to lift up the 100-pound weight on this side. And it's a lot better than, it's a lot better to pull down on that 30 pounds than to be lifting it up. So it's a reduction of like 70%. And it makes these logs real manageable to be able to load yourself with the rig like this. And you could just really, to take this rig apart for travel, you just take the pin out of it and the clevises and throw it in the back of your pickup. So the next shot, I'm going to stop the camera, and the next shot you'll see is a segment that I already filmed, and that's when I was outside before the sun set, loading a few logs into the back of my pickup truck. All right? Okay, I have the jib crane set out here by my truck, and I'm just going to show you how I load these logs. These logs are anywhere from probably 100 to, this one's probably 130 or more pounds. And I've got it hooked up, ready to go. And I'm just going to show you how this works. I did have to shim the base. I'm just going to carry some shims and scrap wood, 1/4 inch wood, 1/2 inch, 3/4 plywood. Because in order for this to work right, this has got to be straight up and down. So here goes the first one. I'm going to try to pull these log tongs down so this boom is as high as I can get it. That way, when I go to pull down on it, I'll get the most lift out of it to put it up on the tailgate. So I just release this line here. so it's plenty high for that tailgate. So I'll swing this back over and I'll pull this down. Hook this line back up. Now I'll just push this in a little bit. Then I'll bring this other one over. And you gotta try to balance it so this goes up somewhat evenly. This log is a little bit thicker over here, so I'll favor that side. Get it close to the base. Open the tongs up. Here goes number 2. Take her off. Got to make sure that that base is shimmed right. I probably should have spent a little bit more time shimming it. On grass it might be a little bit easier. So I'll push this back. And of course wherever you're dropping that wood off, you just roll it off the back of the tailgate. You don't need this lift for that. This is the heaviest one. These are the 3 biggest pieces of my wood pile. But these are all, they have all these limbs sticking out. A lot of this stuff is going to be round. You'll be able to roll it right over to the truck. That looks like it might balance right there. This is the heaviest one. So there's the third one. Push that up there. So that'll do it for the manual jib crane. All right.